Hey, General Contractors, this is Kevin Sterling from GC Sherpa. And tonight on the webinar, we will be looking at how to optimize your contractor website for maximum conversion. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that means on the residential side, commercial side, and then also for contractors that may be doing fast-paced business like repairs versus somebody who's kind of looking for the marathon of remodels, additions, ADUs, more larger, longer sales cycle projects. So a couple of ground rules, if you would, please turn off your cell phones just so that way there's no audio interruptions during it. We want to make sure you can pay attention to everything that we cover. Same thing, Facebook, TikTok, any kind of twerking videos that are going to interrupt you. We'll try and make everything as concise as possible, but you don't want to miss any of the details in the mix. And if you're serious about doubling or tripling the amount of leads that you're getting on your website, which ultimately yields business growth, then you really want to tune in for the next, approximately hour or so. So this model here represents growing your business in a scalable way. So on this side of the model, we have leads. This side, we have conversion, and this side, we have optimization. And all of these things together play into scalable growth. And so we're going to talk about the website and how that relates to reputation and how that relates to automation. And from here, there are 9 clear steps that can help triple your sales and your internet marketing. So if we're talking about getting your leads, those are going to be organic, which means you're not paying for those. They're happening because somebody found your site looking for something in your local area. They searched contractor near me and you came up in the Google map. That would be organic. Paid is going to be whether that's running a Google ad or a Meta ad or an Angie's List ad or something like that. It's, obviously anything that you have paid for exposure to try and get people to come to your site. And then database, it's actually one of the best ways if you've done a good job of keeping up with your past customers, kind of shaking that tree of, hey, how's everything going from that project we did a year ago? Do you have anything new that you might want us to take a look at? And then people can think, oh yeah, I had a great experience with Charlie. And now let's get him back out here to look at, sort of phase 2 of the project. So most contractors and really businesses in general don't appreciate how much revenue they have sitting within their existing network. So all of this gets leads to your website. And then we're going to look at maximizing the conversion. So today it's the website portion of it, and we're going to look at whether that's a 2x to a 10x way of converting more leads. We're going to do that without having to think about you spending some avant-garde designer to come and like give you a brand or do anything that, and I'm saying this from someone whose background is graphic design. I've seen many times designers scrutinize and go nuts over individual pixels. And then someone who just has a marketing focus shows up, builds a completely functional but strategically targeted website, and obviously gets more business for the customer than the hoity-toity designer. And just to touch on these other things, so we have reputation, which is your Google business profile, where people can review you. That's the primary driver of that. You've also got automation. So this is text back, where people are able to, if they call you and you're not able to answer, we can set it up so that they automatically get a text back saying like, hey, so-and-so is on the job. Would you like to book a consultation? That's really the ideal, is for people to pick the time that they want, or you can just continue the text thread back and forth. And then optimizing these results. So we got leads, we got conversions, and then how do we sort of get more of it? And so you can engineer how much you're spending. You can play around with how much each lead is costing you, and then also look at the ROI of of all these mechanisms. So we're going to go here next. Digital dominance. These are all the tools that you have at your disposal. So we're just going to start back here with number one. So you want a website built to convert. You want clear messaging and strong copy, one-page optimization, link building, and local authority, Google Business Profile optimization. And I'm going to kind of shorthand this just so I don't read all the way through it. But SEO gets you found in the search ranks, whether that's Google, Bing, DuckDuckGo. But again, the primary things you're going to hear about are Google, and then now the wild west of AI, where if I have my Chat GPT or my Gemini or whatever, say like, hey, I'm thinking about doing a mother-in-law suite. Can you recommend a contractor in my area? Chat GPT can say, here's contractors in your area that specialize in ADUs or mother-in-law suites, however you want to phrase it. So again, just like years ago, the first person to Google was the one who started to dominate that market. Contractors who take AI seriously and start to dominate that market are going to be leaps and bounds ahead of those who don't, because they're going to own the market share of the consumer's minds. So pay-per-click is, and again, we sort of talked about that, but that's your Meta, your Google ads, any number of those things where they're literally paying for every click that happens. Retargeting, this is what happens after an initial interaction where someone goes to your website, maybe they just kind of browse around, but they pick up a cookie along the way, and then that cookie will show them ads as they go to Facebook, as they go to Google, as they kind of surf around the internet. They are going to continue to see your brand. And often, nowadays people they have very little attention spans, and they get easily distracted, and they're constantly getting pinged with messages. So if you're basically thinking that an ad and then no follow-up is going to magically start getting you leads, you need to reset your expectations. So people, again, like, especially for things that are sort of like aspirational and dreaming, like they want that new kitchen, they want that new bath, they would one day like to do a renovation. It's not something that they every day are grinding planning. It's going to be very sporadic, and it's going to be very much like wish listing of, well, I would like for the counters to look like this, and I would like for the backsplash to look like this, and we would like to do built-ins in the bedroom we're going to do. And so for you, being able to sort of plant seeds in your prospects' minds that 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 18 months later grow, that is going to set you apart from a company that just kind of one and done, flash in the pan, hit them with some marketing. Local market authority building. So these are some of the things. One, in the local search of the Google map, getting the reviews, making sure it's obvious that like you might be a member of a chamber of commerce, you might be a member of a trade group, something that is basically building your credibility, that consumer is going to recognize it. So they might not know a national trade group, but they might know, again, that chamber of commerce. They might know the Better Business Bureau, things like this. Repeat and referral. So this is, again, activating that database. So email marketing. Email is basically free. The software to send marketing emails doesn't cost that much. Same thing with text. If you have, a lot of people do this one-off until they really get to scale. They literally just use their phone and text old customers. But this is everything you can be doing to re-engage existing customers, and then also get your customers to refer you to other people. Some services are pay per lead. So you're actually getting charged for a legitimate lead. It's contentious. Some people say, yeah, it's great. That's what I want to do. I only want to pay for, like actual leads. But the problem is just because it's a lead doesn't mean it's a lead that's ready to close. And it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to close it in the way that you think you are. So you never want it to be the primary source of your business growth. And they usually cost more than a lot of these other activities. And I will say, each of these activities have sort of associated cost per leads with them, that some might be more expensive, but they become effective sooner. And then some may have a cheaper cost per lead, but take a long time to do it. And that's really why strategic marketing is a mix, and it's constantly playing these channels of short game, mid game, long game, and again, sort of like seeing what hits. If you're familiar with the 80-20 principle, that 80% of yield comes from 20% of inputs, you will likely reach a point where you're going to say, you know what, for us, like we really nailed it with the meta ads, and so we're going to dial back on whatever the paper lead that we were doing, or we're going to dial back on print advertising, or any number of those things. Doesn't mean that you do it forever. It just means that for a period of time that you're willing to observe, you just kind of tone it down a little bit. And then social media advertising. So a lot of this is brand awareness. If you have a big following, like it's a direct way to engage with a community of people. But you're basically going to highlight projects, talk about who you are, and talk about how your customers' lives became better because you were able to do this thing for them and build this thing and provide this service. And then similarly, those retargeting ads that we talked about, they're going to be spliced into the feed that you have. So sometimes people will call this concept omnipresence, like really a company wants to be everywhere. We understand budgets and time and constraints. You may not have all these things in place all the time, but it's kind of the goal, is to be in your local market, to be everywhere. And when someone is looking to do a project, like they're going to say top of mind, these guys seem like they're really put together, and their company is successful enough that they can afford marketing. That is definitely a way that consumers justify looking at one business over another. Who am I? Why should you listen to me? You've already been at it for a few minutes, but let's just talk about some nuts and bolts. Our company, GC Sherpa, we exclusively work with general contractors in the residential and commercial side, and we have skin in the game. We are a member of the AGC of America, and then also the National Association of Home Builders, and we are active in our state level of those organizations. My background, as I said, is graphic design, which turned into marketing, which turned into marketing strategy and direction, and really any number of things in the creative and design and marketing field. I have worked basically in all of it, but really became passionate about the construction industry and general contractors, and felt like it was an underserved niche that we really wanted to spend our day there, in the same way that you may have worked in other aspects of construction, but you decided to focus on one part of it. So that's the sandbox that we like to play in. So in terms of who we can help, there is kind of a small threshold that you obviously have to have some degree of establishment, some degree of money to work with. That being said, we give away tons of content for free, and we're happy to do so. But for smaller companies that are trying to get established, middle-sized companies that are trying to push, and then larger companies that often have sort of blind spots. As an example, commercial construction companies seemingly have huge hiring issues, and they're not necessarily using marketing to address those concerns, but they probably should be, because too often we tend to think that marketing is only about leads and only about growing business, when in reality, it directly plays into hiring. It directly plays into retention, directly plays into, even if you're, we're a bid only company. Well, price, yeah, absolutely, could be the lowest bidder. But if you're lowest bidder, but the municipality checks your safety record, and on Google it says that your drivers are reckless and run people off the road, and whatever, leave tar or materials or whatever, it's just, you make a mess out of every job site, like that is going to go into play in choosing you over another one, because like the price might not be worth it when it's all said and done. So anyway, that's us. And if you are interested in working with us at the end of this webinar, you can easily get a hold of us, gcsherpa.com, 845-533-3309. Email us, grow@gcsherpa.com. And you can also book a time where you'd like to talk to us if you want to basically do it on your own timeline, and we'll make sure that we're on the other end of the telephone. We've worked, as we said, with all different scale of contracting clients, whether they are construction managers or large commercial construction companies, small mom and pops. We have the capability and flexibility to service all kinds of general contractors. Our mission is that we really want to help general contractors grow their business, not just so that they have deeper pockets and can get big rims on the Escalade, but we understand that with a healthy, predictable business, there's a huge amount of peace of mind in knowing that you don't have to struggle to find the work. You can pick the work you like, and you can live a fulfilling life. And the people that you employ can have fulfillment through their work just because their business is healthier. Good marketing and consistent marketing is really just an important part of a healthy business, just the same as finance and operations and hiring and management. So that's us. That's our mission. Biggest trends we want to cover on this. So mobile versus desktop usage. Absolutely, you are probably aware that people are on their mobile phones all the time. And so it used to be that maybe they weren't shopping for larger purchases on a phone. They wanted to go to the desktop and kind of dig in. But increasingly, all the usage is heading towards mobile devices. Speed and performance. So Google will penalize your site in the search rankings if it's slow, if it doesn't load quickly. And really, like, again, we talk about people with the attention span of seemingly an ant. They'll leave. If your site is slow to load and they can't find what they want, they'll say, look, I'm going to go somewhere else for this. And so part of the technical optimization of your website needs to be making sure it loads fast and gets people what they want quickly. Having a click to call button. This last section here is obviously talking about contact and lead capturing. Not everybody wants to fill out a form. Forms feel very permanent. They feel like if they give your email address, you're constantly going to be hitting them with all this stuff and kind of like being more aggressive than they necessarily want. People love texting. I mean, in my generation, just again, different than people who are going to be older than me, but like I'm in the demographic of like homeowner who is in the market for remodel in the next few years. And if I have a choice between calling somebody on the phone and texting, like I might prefer the text, I think. And so if you're not facilitating that, big missed opportunity. It's also texting doesn't matter if you can pick up the phone, doesn't matter if they can pick up the phone, they'll see it. Texts also have a very high response rate because people don't like showing that sort of like unread on their text. Most people, I know there's some people probably love the 10,000 unread texts, but you can also automate it, which is amazing. And so if people are going to call, you can even turn their call into a text thread and you can keep it going without having to actually answer the phone. Like, again, if you're like stuck in traffic or on another call or tied up on a job. More trends. So review and trust factors. People absolutely look at those Google reviews when they move to a new area and they don't know anybody and can't get that referral. They're going to go to Google and they're going to see, okay, who's reliable contractor in this area. And they're going to look at your 5-star reviews, and they're also going to look at the 1-star. They're going to see how recent that 1-star is, and they're going to make sure that there aren't any egregious issues in terms of like why that is. And people do have an understanding, I think, that sometimes kind of crazy people pop off and give 1-star reviews. It's not really the company's fault. And I think if you have enough 5-star reviews, it will give you the benefit of the doubt. But they want to know basically that they can trust you. And if they are trusting you, then like you have to do your part and like show up on time and return the calls and actually follow up. Video and visual engagement. So again, we're finding this in the ad world where the meta ad, where you can do video and visuals, are really just beating out in because they're more evocative than a Google search where the ad is really just like some text, like it doesn't inspire me to do a home remodel that I've seen just like the information about a company. Now, some industries or some services where it's if I need a roof repair, if I need a plumbing fix, if I need an electrician, I don't really care what any of their work looks like. I just need to know, like, are they reliable? Are they, highly rated in our area? Then, they can get away with sort of not as many visuals. But if you want to just differentiate yourself, then like you have to paint a picture of like who you are, who's showing up at the homeowner's house, and giving them peace of mind of like, okay, I'm good with this person showing up and hanging out at my house for a while. Other big trend, no surprise here, is just the AI. So that could look like chatbots where you pop on a site, says, hey, how can we help you? And you can actually have it trained to go through a dialogue of, okay, your heat is out. Again, like, what have you tried? Like, have you done anything? Like, basically ask the qualifying questions so that you can then assign a tech if that's the right way to do it, or they can book a call or any number of things. And then, that all turns into leads that you can then automatically text, you can automatically call. And on the other side of it, Google is now rolling out features in some markets where if I'm looking for a particular service, I'm going to get the results. And then Google is offering that AI will call you, the contractor, and talk through what me, the searcher, is looking for, and basically come back and say, like, yeah, this person is qualified. Would you like for us to connect you to them? So they're pre-vetting people, which is crazy. But again, Google is all about facilitating these interactions between people looking for something and people trying to be found. Your website ties all this stuff together, whether it's an ad, whether it's a social media post, really, like, unless they're going to call you directly from the Google business profile or like, your other profiles, which they can do, likely they're going to go dig slightly deeper and go to the website. And that's why the website really is crucial for being ready to convert people into a proper lead. So let's talk about two situations. Scenario one, we've got 1,500 visitors per month. We have 5% conversion rate. That means 75 calls or leads. 30% of those get converted, 22 book jobs, $450 average transaction, which obviously that's not a contractor, it's just math. There's $10,125 of revenue coming out of that per month. Now, let's talk about tweaking some of these numbers. Scenario two, 1,500 visitors per month, 15% conversion. That means 225 calls, leads, same conversion rate on the sales. That's 67 book jobs, 450 average transaction, 3,150. So almost tripling the revenue. And you're not getting better at sales. I mean, you might be, but in terms of this example, you're not getting better at sales. You're literally just making the website convert better. And you can see that if you're not doing that, you're leaving money on the table. Here is a website growth performance from one of our clients. And what this is really here is just to illustrate the AI. So now in a lot of the metrics that are available to look at search engine optimization of a website, it's the AI overview is really the first thing. And so this client, when we started working with them, was at 0, which most clients are at this point, because it's such a new frontier. And then all of a sudden, boom, they have a huge boost on ChatGPT, huge boost on AI. And, again, like, this is domain ranking. And, you can see how the average ranking is just like gone up significantly. Now, does this mean automatically that it's jobs? No, but what it is it's traffic. And then again, the traffic eventually converts and becomes jobs. And that's the organic traffic up 137. And so it's showing the value of all that traffic based on sort of like, it's a little bit of abstract internet math. But again, I think you get the idea that by putting in search engine efforts towards AI, you get the boost in exposure for the site. Same thing, same site there, just showing again the trend of referring domains really starting to hit and take off, where traffic is just kind of going from low level, not much, to a significant increase. All moving in the right direction. Again, then sort of breaks out what we discussed. This is earned traffic. We want to definitely call that. So they weren't spending on ads to get that traffic. It's not a short-term spike. And when we say short-term spike, some people will reach a point in SEO where they say like, hey, that's good enough. Let's scale back a little bit. And that's fine because it doesn't actually go anywhere overnight. So if you've done SEO right, you saw that graph climbing. It's not just tapering if you turn it off. Like it's basically going to float until somebody else starts to offer something more valuable to Google, and then it starts to decline. But you can basically work that investment for a significant amount of time once you've made it. And again, if you stay with it for the long haul, you would expect that it will continue to grow. And especially if you're the first in your market to AI, you're going to be leaps and bounds ahead of anybody that tries to catch up to you. This is more breakout on the detail here, just kind of talking about some of these things. These are Chat GPT mentions, Google AI overview. So Google trust websites that other relevant sites reference. The steady increase in referring domains, one of the biggest contributors to ranking stability and long-term growth. So because this site has gone through the SEO efforts to have a higher domain ranking, like I think when we started with this particular client, it might have been single digits or maybe like 12 max. And then in less than a year, it's gone up to 28, which is a great jump. So why is getting your website built to convert important to you? So if you're watching this right now, what are you looking to get out of it? Like, what do you think would change about your day-to-day life or your life, sort of in the next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, if you turn your site into a conversion machine? We've got a workbook, which we'll make sure the links are in the show notes to this if you're watching it after the fact, or else I'm just going to drop it in the chat. Is we have basically a workbook where you can look at this methodology of how do we want to approach a site, and it's a checklist. So if you're kind of not sure where to start, breaks it down nice and easy. And then for all of us watching, we're going to continue digging into it here. Critical elements of conversion. Number one is you really just have to know who you're talking to. So if you're talking to everybody, you're talking to nobody. So even us, some people say general contractors are too broad. Doesn't really scare us right now because we know what that means. A lot of people call themselves general contractors. That could be residential, it could be commercial. If people start saying, hey, can you help me? I'm HVAC, or I'm a power washer, or, I do steel frames. Sometimes we say like, hey, look, that's not our real focus. And so we kind of pull it back. And so if you're not already doing that, I would encourage you to do so. What that looks like, it might be, hey, look, we look for families. Typically we're dealing with a woman who's between 48 and 57 years old. They have an income of X. They typically live in this kind of house, and we usually meet with them to remodel it after it's so many years old. That's the idea of the avatar. And really, like, if you can, some people even name it and say like, this is Rosie, and everybody thinks about Rosie, and any action is viewed through the lens of like, what would Rosie think about this? It really makes all your decisions easier, like how you talk, how you depict your work, how you depict your staff. All of these things can sort of bend towards that guiding North Star of the avatar. Also encourage you to be real. If you go, like, I've seen it, like I sort through hundreds, if not thousands, of contracting websites, and I often see the same stock images used on all of them. And I think like, all right, I know that most homeowners don't notice that, but I notice it. And so it's sort of like, okay, why can't you just show me a picture of your team? Like, let me see you. Let me see, like your trucks. Like, let's kind of see the company instead of this sort of like generic face. Using different media. Again, everybody has a smartphone and You can buy a $25 tripod on Amazon that will do excellent job of staying still while you record things. You can use it as a selfie stick. So the excuse of I don't know how to film, I don't know what to film, it's all kind of going out the window in the world we live in because of AI, and really just there's so much out there. You can earmark it and say like, I like that, I'm going to replicate that. Welcome people to the site with a video, talk about all your services, talk to a client in a video and say like, hey, tell them how happy you are with your new kitchen. Tell them how much less stress it was to keep your home organized when we did those built-ins for you. All of those are opportunities to not just show stuff, but to educate people and to bring them in the experience and let them think how their life might be different if they can participate in a job like what you're proposing. Social proof, showing that it's easy to embed your Google reviews into your site, or Angie's List, what other kind of rating scenario you've got set up, and make sure you've got conversion opportunities. So that's going to be like call or click to text, schedule online like a conversation, and then either like a chat bot or like again, we talked about the texting. Call to action, you want to make sure those are clear. So if it be consistent, like even though we just talked about chat, call, text, whatever, just make sure that like the button is not discover more. What does that mean? It's like learn more about kitchen. And then if you go to kitchen, it's like call us to discuss your kitchen. Like make it really just dead simple. Now, sometimes with contracting, there's not a reason to buy right now. Like again, we talked about how you got to line up the financing, you have to line up the inspiration. Depending on what your setup is, they might have to hire an architect, an interior designer, maybe an engineer. A lot of things come into play that if they don't, like if you're the contractor and you have all those connections, and like you might advertise that, because if the people are not talking to you because they're waiting to line up all those other pieces, good opportunity for you to say, hey, if you're dreaming about your new home, we should talk now so I can help you fill in the gaps on those other pieces. But none of those projects happen quickly. And so the thing to think about is, what could you do to encourage people to do it now? Whether it's, hey, we are doing a showcase at one of our most recent projects, or like, hey, we're doing an event at this tile vendor that we really like, and we would like to invite you to come meet us and talk about some of the things for your home. Those are all reasons to make people make a decision. It could even be a financing offer. You say like, we're going to knock, like, actually, I'll call this out as a good example. I looked at a design and build in Colorado the other day, who they had a whole promotion. It was like, start your remodel now and we'll give you $2,500 in Bosch appliance credits, which like amazing, right? Like great deal that somebody's going to see that and say like, well, Bosch makes great stuff, I don't want to miss that deal. We were going to wait till next spring, but what can we do to make it happen faster? It's a great use of scarcity to get people to act. We talked already about mobile optimization, which if you're not really sure where to start there, sometimes it means you do have to hire a developer because there are tweaks that you might not know how to make. Same thing with the speed. You may not know how to speed up your website. There are tools you kind of add on depending on how your website's built. But again, this is why it's good to have a vendor that understands all this, so that you don't have to get caught in the weeds trying to do it in between your jobs. And then also, if you are running paid traffic, we encourage you to have basically better tracking. If that's like separate pages of the site where all that traffic goes, just so it doesn't get tied into your main website. And it's also usually, if you're doing landing pages, you're going to want to have a testing software associated with that so you can understand which actually converts better. Engaging via SMS, phone, I'm not going to go too crazy here. We've already discussed people love texting, and you can automate it, and you can make it so they get text for a month, and if they don't respond, it just cycles them back and then it starts again. really the sky's the limit on what the options are to be flexible for that. And really, like, if you haven't started thinking about how AI can help you in your marketing, it doesn't mean that people are talking to robots. Like, even if it's uh, facilitating their ability to schedule time with you, that goes a long way, and it saves steps and it saves time. And again, like, people don't care; they're used to it. So we talked about a lot. There's been a lot of things that have sort of come out of this so far. So I just want to stop and ask, uh, what do you feel like of the things that we discussed would have the biggest impact on all of your marketing efforts? And if you're thinking about it, write down some ideas. But as we kind of roll along, like, try and get a circle around one of those things that you can focus on, like, in the next month, in the next quarter. Like, keep that timeline tight so that you can go into the next, so that you can roadmap. Okay, here's where we started, and here's where I want this to be, so that we can really fire on all cylinders. How do we optimize for conversion? And this, again, like we talked about all this. And then SEO interjects into it, which is sort of like your traffic provider if you're doing that. Um, this is just a snapshot from one of our clients, and we're just going to talk about a few conversion opportunities here. So number one, the phone number is in the top right. That is the standard thing about a phone number. And this is a little bit of a trick question on this example, because right now we have a phone number. And so the example is, if we were going to improve this, it would basically be adding, call or text, or you could even say text us, call us, like, encourage them to use people to utilize the phone number. Um, some people like that form. And so this is where it's like a philosophical difference. Some people say, well, they're not going to fill out the form unless they know you. You can't just expect people to land on the site and fill out the form. Now the question is, if you post on social media every day and they like you already, and then they go to their site to get a hold of you on the form, instead of like sending you a DM and Instagram, maybe they do want the form immediately. So it's kind of your discretion. I think this is something you might have to figure out if you're tracking the performance of your site. But again, some people are going to say, don't put forms front and center. Depends on the nature of your business. But in this case, these guys are trying it out. You can also, again, talk about a little bit of an offer, a free estimate, and you can say, call us. And if you wanted to improve that, you might say, call us today. This is all about empathy. So if you can see Joe Jones through Joe Jones's eyes, then you can sell what Joe Jones buys, right? So if you can have a clear understanding of who people are and really how they think, then how they're making their buying decisions can become really clear. So that goes back to the avatar that we discussed, is like, how tight can you make that so that you are just dialed in on, the Joe Jones, like, what makes Joe happy, what makes Joe sad, how can you fuel Joe's happiness, because you have an understanding and empathy, for what they're going through. And these are just some details, like, we talked about a lot of things here, about, what this person is like, but then also, like, what don't they like, contractors as an industry. There's the stereotype of, like, well, they didn't finish the job, they left crap, their people showed up and left cigarette butts all over the yard, or any number of things have made contractors not the most pristine reputation of people that people necessarily want to deal with. And so, like, knowing that, how can you immediately mitigate it coming into it? Even things as simple as, like, are people always wear uniforms when they're in the house? Like, that is a trust indicator. Even if you're in construction and you're building a house and the homeowner is never there until, a month away, it's kind of like, how you do anything is how you do everything, if you've ever heard that. Same here. Like, it's the demographics, it's the pains and fears. And then here it's like, what are they worried about from some of these things? Like, what do they want to get done? Like, dive into all this stuff and really try to have an understanding of it. So how do you, we talked about like pre-approaching it. If you know that everybody's worried about this, you know that these are some of the things. Smart communication is diffusing objections that are going to happen in sales, like before you even get to the sales funnel. So the timelines, the scheduling, the pricing, giving a ballpark of, hey, look, if you're going to deal with us, here's the average square foot in this area, in this zip code. So right off the bat, they can say, okay, well, yeah, I know that my kitchen is this big. Certainly I should expect to at least pay this. So that way they don't come into it thinking like, well, I thought I'd get away for $10,000, completely unrealistic. That's called anchoring, really, is like if you can give people some idea about what it's going to cost, so that they don't have sticker shock once, sort of like the pencil meets the paper, if you want to say that. So also just show your track record, like, and it might be tough if you're a new company and like you haven't been in business that long. You don't necessarily have a long track record, but you could show like, what are you doing currently that's excellent. And you can also say like, look, honestly, I would like you to be my first great case study, and in doing so, we would like to offer you, like this guarantee or this warranty, or like we want to credit you this amount back on the job if it, you workshop that where you want that to be. But you get the idea that like your ability to showcase your past successes is going to alleviate their fears and concerns and give them confidence that you're the right person for the job. Ideal customer, that's basically what we said, is like talking about the process, paint the picture, letting them understand what you're going to be delivering. Be specific, so if it's like home renovation, then be home renovation. If it's historic restoration, be historic restoration. That, like, so many contractors say like, we'll do whatever you want. It's like, well, you're the expert, like you should tell me what is like the best solution for what we're doing. Like, I want, people say like, I want a new kitchen, but in reality it's, I want storage so that my pots and pans aren't on like a crappy IKEA island, or my dog hair is all over this plates and stuff, so we want to do a better job, like we want more storage. Or like, I'm embarrassed when people come to my house. Like, if you dig deeper, like it's the kitchen is the way that they alleviate all those emotional things. And again, video multimedia. So this is a social feed of some of our clients. You can see it's a mix of reels, of static posts, of slideshows, like showing work in progress, showing finished work, showing design tips. Basically giving people the idea that like you're a design expert and a construction expert. This is design build, obviously, but like you are the authority in your space, and on a consistent basis all week they're being hit with that. So if you meet them at a home show, they're going to follow you on social, which, like, again, anytime you have an interaction, like if people aren't ready to buy, like at a bare minimum, hey, follow us on Instagram, we'd love to keep in touch. Showcasing the projects, basically have case studies about different scenarios, like kitchens that we did that, again, changed people's lives, bathrooms that, it was a basement bathroom, never thought it'd be anything pleasant, and now it's like a highlight sanctuary of the home. Think about what it meant to the person, and not just say like, here's the commodity that any contractor could have done. Going back to mobile friendly, all the audience, like increasing audience, and like there's no shortage of traffic that's going to be coming to your site from mobile. People are searching for all kinds of purchases online on mobile phones, and they're buying, like they're not going to pay for the renovation on their phone, but like they might do all the research and keep an Instagram save folder of like inspiration, and then when the time comes, look up who are the contractors in the area, and then which one of them is on Instagram, and that's the one they're going to follow. And maybe out of one or two of them, they're just going to pick the one they feel like is the best fit. So excuse me. Similarly, if they have the design inspiration and they go on Instagram, and one company is kind of like, I'm going to use their word, vibing with their design aesthetic, and there's another contractor, like old website, not mobile friendly, not on social media. I don't think they're going to consider you, like, because you don't speak the same language, and you haven't made an attempt to appeal to that demographic. And so, like, realistically, anybody coming up from a younger audience, which eventually is going to be everybody, they're going to want people that are mobile friendly, social media savvy, and otherwise design oriented. Click to call. So on mobile, it's easy to set up, and actually desktop too, so that if you hit those buttons, it automatically rings the phone. And same thing, like, it doesn't have to be call. It could be text. You could try text now if you would rather do that. But either way, it needs to be easy. That's kind of the point of it, is that it shouldn't be a pain to, well, there's no way to call us. You need to set up a form. You need to, qualify yourself before we're going to talk to you. It's another thing that if people are just having an introductory thing, they don't want to jump through all those hoops. They really often just want a little bit of information, and they want to connect to somebody to find out even if it's the right fit. So optimizing the forms and really making sure, like, you're not asking too much, you're just asking the right amount of questions. As an introductory thing, you can always qualify them later. Like right now, and this kind of goes into, like, we're going to deviate, but if your sales process isn't dialed in, you should figure out, like, how many calls are you expecting to have with people, like, before you close a deal. So what I mean by that is, can you offer a free consultation that is kind of like a discovery call or a strategy call or a dream call? You could brand it if you want. And that's basically just like, is this person in the ballpark that someday we might work with them? And if that all goes well, then on that call, you may qualify them, or you might say, like, hey, appreciate this call. We would like to have this intake form so that we can be of greater service to you on the next step of this process. And maybe that's where you dig a little deeper, so it's not too intrusive on step one. You take it to that greater level of understanding at a later step. Key ideas: we talked about authenticity, we talked about multimedia, talked about trust, all of those things crucial. And then, of course, the basics: the phone, the forms, making sure it's easy to fill it out and it's not arduous. Like, test it out yourself, like, pull up your mobile phone and do it and see what it feels like for you to have to go through. Excuse me, this is late nighters. I'm not used to it. To make sure it's easy for people to get a hold of you. And again, what can you think about? Like, is it once a year, twice a year, 3 times, 4 times a year, monthly? Can you do anything to basically get people to buy now or to start the process now versus waiting? So again, add-ons, discounts, co-ventures, where you say, like, start your process with us and we're going to give you a discount on insurance, or we're going to do this feature for you. A joint venture like that would be a great way to get people to move on a home project. We asked this question before, but, like, where are we at right now? Is any of this resonating? Are you thinking, yeah, I feel like I've really been blowing it on this opportunity on my site, and I want to do X, Y, and Z? So let us know. We want to know what you feel like you're lacking in. And, before we ask for one, then now I'm curious, like, 30 days from now, what 3 do you think you could nail down? So write that down, and then if you want, let us know in the comments what you're picking. Action items. The biggest marketing issue is usually unconverted leads, right? Like, so they might not be doing anything to get leads, but just by the grace of God, they get leads, but then they don't convert them. And it's usually because they expect them to convert immediately. If you run a business completely off referrals, this is often your paradigm, is you think, well, I talked to them and they weren't ready to roll. And that's because people who are referrals are pretty much 90% ready to buy. They know you, like you, trust you because somebody they know, like, and trust have moved. They've transferred that from their recommendation onto you, and now they know, like, and trust you. So they basically show up ready to buy as long as you don't blow it. If you're getting leads, cold leads, they don't know you, they don't like you, they don't trust you. But they're maybe 50% there, 60%, whatever. All of your marketing efforts are intended to basically drip that along so that they go over the hill and get to 100%. So unconverted leads, biggest issue is that people give up too quick. Here you go. Inbound and leave, and the web forms don't fail to convert. It's usually because no follow-up. Don't follow up in 15 minutes, it goes cold. Again, people have that goldfish brain at this point where, hey, oh yeah, I was on my lunch break. I wanted to call, talk about that thing. I didn't get in contact with them. I'm not going to have time till next Tuesday. And if they're calling multiple people and one of the places answers, the other one doesn't, and then they don't get to connect with you calling back, sorry, but it's not going to happen. So the good part about text is, like, I can be on a call and I can text a prospect, and similarly, they can be on another call and they can get my text. Or they could be on a conference call and they're just kind of zoned out, and maybe texting with you is actually a diversion and they appreciate it. So again, you can be you can entertain them while they're not paying attention to things they're supposed to be paying attention to at work. So think about how this automation can be a tool in your toolbox. So we talked about the text. We talked about now there's also AI callback where the AI can call on your behalf and schedule. Which, if you think like, oh, I don't ever want to do that, you should see how well it works before you make that decision. It is eerily good at reading people's voices, sounding real, and setting up basic appointments to say, hey, you can talk to Johnny Tuesday at 4 p.m. and discuss your project. In terms of frequency and quantity, you'd be amazed how many times you often have to communicate with people via text and via email before they take action. We have a client we work with as a nonprofit, and even on a simple $35 purchase, we found that it took like 3 weeks of retargeting somebody before they went back to the website and made their purchase. And that's a $35 purchase, like nothing big. So again, if everything else in my life is busy and people have kids and family and cars and dogs and all this crazy stuff of life, and then you're selling them something that's going to completely upheave their life, it's not a priority, right? Like, you have to make it more pertinent than what it is, and secondly, you have to remind them that's kind of the goal, right? Like, you're almost like the personal trainer. It's like, you wanted this, remember, like, you wanted this, and you have to push consistently towards them to make that thing happen. Simple math, we kind of looked at this before, about like just how important it is to have conversion rate plus automated follow-up. And that's going to basically preload a lot of your sales. So if your conversion rate in your sales is 30%, you may be able to have stronger at bats because the people are pre-positioned through your follow-up. And again, like, the leverage of what you pay for some of these tools versus what you get, especially at the ticket price of, a commercial contracting job or high residential, like a larger project, it just makes sense even to just try it. Every lead that you generate can become more valuable if you have a better sales and conversion system in place. Let's talk about your business. And again, what are we going to do with it? We've talked about tons of tools, we've talked about tons of strategies and tactics. But if this just sits here in this webinar and then you go back to doing what you're doing, business as usual, nothing's going to change, right? Like, you're going to have lucky days, you're going to have not so lucky days. And then a year from now, you're going to say, like, well, I didn't really get what I wanted out of 2026. If you're willing to take action, you can start implementing this stuff today. Hopefully not tomorrow. Start today. Look at even if today you look at your website and you write down 10 things that you would like to improve about it, even 3 things, you will be one step closer towards the right track. Again, take those action items. If you want help, we said this before, we do this professionally. I'll tell you right now, it's not rocket science, but there are some tools that you probably don't have. There are some things in the way of skills that you probably don't have. And I know that time and energy and focus, probably something that you don't have. So if you would like help for this, you can book a strategy call with us. We'll look at where your site is. We'll look at what your market's like from a competitive standpoint. We can provide a pretty clear roadmap on what we think we can or can't do to help you get where you want to go with your business. Just post in the comments, talk, or else you can email us, grow@gcsherpa.com, and we'll get you set up on the calendar to have that conversation. So again, our marketing analysis that we just kind of talked about, it's going to look at like, how visible are you online right now? Like those keyword reports that we looked at from that AI client, we can see what your site looks like. We can look at the keywords that you should be targeting and may already be ranking for. And then also at the same time, in your market, who are the big dogs? You know, like who's been investing in their marketing for a while, or maybe like who invested but dropped off that maybe you can come in for the strike. You know, that's also a great opportunity to find out. We're going to look at your reviews and reputations and see like, what's the velocity of those like? Are you consistent in those? What's the opportunity? Really soup to nuts. Like we're going to give you a whole picture of your marketing and then basically say, okay, based on all of this, here's a roadmap that we can offer. So again, that's our info. If you have questions, you can post those in the comments. We'll get back to you. Otherwise, we appreciate your time very much for attending this webinar. And we have a webinar every month. So if you're not watching this live, check out our website to find out what this month's new topic is. We also run a podcast. That's thetoppingoffpodcast.com, where we interview general contractors to find out how they got where they are, where they're going, and hopefully spread a little bit of wisdom and encouragement along the way. So thank you again, and we will see you at the top.